All right. Once again, welcome everyone. Just get started. I see many are still trickling in. Like I said, if you are joining in for the first time, please do share on where you're joining in from and or where are you from. Where you're from could mean different things. Where you were born, where do you work, where do you really grew up mentally, physically, and it could be where you're logging in from as well. OMG, so we are order management gurus as a community. We came about 3 months ago. It started just as a conversation. We felt the need to for the order management community to come together among some of us. My name is Abhishek Kalra. I'm from Nextuple. The idea was kind of conceived in Nextuple, but then we have a few of us within the industry get together and started kind of settling this down. So the group is really to collaborate, network, drive innovation, thought leadership, knowledge sharing from different aspects coming together. Order management has been around for a longest time, right? As one of the parts of the supply chain domain, but then there have been so many different things that have been happening over all this while. So our hope is to kind of go share what we are doing in our individual field areas and kind of also learn from each other. Few changes that happened since we spoke last a month ago. We on many of you guys requested to open up the order management, otherwise gurus group, to a larger audience. So that's what we did. So anyone who's an enthusiast on order management, wants to learn, or is in surrounding areas, e-com, omni-channel, retail store, or from different industry segments, manufacturing, we are welcoming them in. They're happy to join. The group is still moderated because we want to make sure that the conversations are relevant. So fast forward, as of this morning, there are about 725 plus members, still going very fast. Just this morning, we learned that LinkedIn announced us to be an active group. So so go ahead, please feel free to share anything that any ideas that you come up with. Drop one of us a note, and I'll introduce the team in just a bit. For what we can do, for what you are looking for, and we can go from there. A few ground rules we've focused on. This is meant for everyone in the order management space. We want to be safe and neutral zone. So it's not a forum to sell any product or service. There are so many other places that you could do that. So the posts are moderated, but if you're a seller, but welcome to share thought leadership with the group. Anyone who's on and off, it's a public group though. Anyone can see what goes on the group, but then members can create posts, right? Would invite you to raise the curtains. Like I said again, the event is being recorded. It's also being linked in live. It'll be posted, and then if you have any questions, you can drop into the chat or raise your hand, and we'll unmute you. I would also like to invite for a shout out to both to Chap, Karan, if you could spotlight Chap, and yourself. Chap is the person from the backyard. If you have not seen yet, go back and see the first video that was posted on Order Management Gurus, where Chap, did an "oh my god" moment, and then Karan, Chap, say something wise.
Yeah, I know most of you are used to seeing me in my yard. I had to get out of the yard when I heard that Darko was going to be hosting this panel. These events help create the community that we all aspired to when we hit the Join OMG group. So enjoy this, but most importantly, I hope it inspires you to jump in and keep the momentum of OMG going. Thank you.
Thanks, Chap. Karan, over to you. What's your joke for today?
I couldn't actually come up with the joke at the impromptu moment, but I am very happy to be a part of this community, and I look forward to healthy interactions. There have been a couple of events, and it's been a very exciting time so far. So looking forward to be amongst all of you and grow this community further. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Karan.
I have a joke for you that I thought
that's it. Go on, Darpan. So how can we miss you?
You asked Chap to say something wise, and so I said, okay, I have to step up and say something otherwise.
There you go. There you go. That's Darpan for all of us, right? Thanks, Darpan. moving on, let me take this moment to invite Darko to share. Darko has been uh, involved with the whole thought of conceiving this, the idea of bringing the order management community together. Darko plays the role of a product manager at Gap. I know of late for the last 3 months, he's been trotting all over Eastern Europe, many countries, and he has many funny stories, which he will not be sharing today. Because today is when we have an esteemed panel with us to talk about inventory. So with that, let me hand it over to Darko and enjoy the panel, folks.
Thanks, Abhishek. Thanks all for sharing. It's really my honor to be your moderator and host today. There were some ideas to rename this to Order Management Anonymous, meaning people who have suffered enough, share their stories. But I really like the name Gurus. So my fellow order management gurus, warm welcome to all of you. Warm welcome to the first timers, as well as the people who has been participating. And I am really excited to be here today because the topic that we have for today is really, really interesting. And just think about this. Think about inventory. Inventory is always in the news. Just open any news channel, open any newspaper. It's always in the news for two reasons, and none of those reasons are good. We either talk about there is not enough inventory and everybody panicking, or there is too much inventory and retailers don't really know what to do with it. So in this whole wild and woolly world of retail and supply chain and order management, the tricky part is really how do we balance planning with placement with execution? And it's really like throwing this juggling flaming torches while riding a unicycle on a tightrope. And it's a question that people have tried to answer for many decades. And even though with the newest technology we have today, it's still an issue. So don't worry. It's a question that it's really complicated, but for today, we have put a really an extraordinary group of people to come and share insights with us. And as the quote says here, seeing an issue from multiple angles is like examining a precious gemstone under different lights. Each perspective reveals a new facet of truth. So we're gonna cover this one great topic from multiple angles. And I'm gonna ask the panelists to introduce themselves. Liz, do you wanna go first?
Sure. Good day, everyone. It looks like there's quite a variety of different time zones represented here. So happy Friday to everyone, whether it's the beginning of your day, midday, or the end of day. Cheers to you if certainly it's the end of day. I'm a little jealous. I'd like to be sitting back and drinking a glass of wine right now. But in any case, I just wanted to really say a warm thank you to certainly everyone on the call, but also the opportunity to join this group. I don't know if I would necessarily label myself as a guru. I'm still learning, certainly in the world and space of order management and all the lovely logic and routing rules that come with it. But either way, I'm super happy to be here and certainly be considered for the discussion. Quick little speech about my history and I guess kind of who I am. I am currently overseeing Omni operations and fulfillment for all of Tapestry North America. But I've spent the better part of my career in the industry, around a little over 30 years, actually. Really, the majority of that time is spent on the sales and inventory planning side. I did take a leap of faith about 6 or 7 years ago and moved into more of the project management, transformation, and the operational side of the business. But the bulk of my experience has been really in inventory management, sales planning, forecasting, demands, whether it's, consumer of luxury goods versus, consumer product goods. But I do have, quite a plethora of experience across a variety of different industries. But more recently, and this is, I think, where I had the pleasure of working with Abhishek and Darpan and certainly Chap, working with order management and some of those rules and logic. And hence, I think why they pegged me to try to join today's panel discussion. But like I said, it's certainly not a guru, certainly keep learning in this space, and there's a lot to learn, and certainly peeling the onion every single day. But either way, very excited to be here today, and look forward to the discussion.
Liz, thank you for sharing that. We are delighted to have you here. 30 years ago, I couldn't speak any language, not just English. So it's an incredible opportunity. Next, it's Vivek. Vivek, you want to go ahead?
Hey guys, I'm Vivek Farias. Thanks for having me join in on your weekly meeting here. Pleasure to be here. I'll just say a couple words about myself. I'm a professor at MIT. I'm the chair of the operations group, actually. It's the department that coordinates all our research on inventory optimization and supply chain and things like that. So that's the world I've lived in for my research career. I've been at MIT for about 17 years. And then outside of MIT, I've founded a few companies. One that is potentially interesting to this group is a company called Select, which I founded in 2014. Select was a company that was focused on building an AI platform for inventory optimization. And Select was acquired by Nike in 2019. In terms of fulfillment optimization, it's something I've been doing for a good amount of time. A number of the sort of algorithms that get used today for fulfillment optimization actually came out of my lab a while ago, and so I've been very proud to be associated with the folks that kind of done this stuff and worked alongside them. Very, very excited about this conversation.
Thanks, Vivek. That was impressive. The fact that you teach at MIT, it's impressive, but everything else that come with it, it's equally or even more impressive. So we're delighted to have you here. Next on the panel, we have Charles, or as I know him, Charlie. Charlie, please go ahead.
Hey guys, Charlie here. Vivek, I cannot follow your intro, so this is gonna be a letdown to everybody. I'm not an MIT professor. I wish I was. Maybe one day, who knows? But team, excited to be here. This is pretty awesome. Darko and group, congrats on getting this started, by the way. Just getting off the ground is hard. I've spent my whole life in customer-facing retail, got into it right after school. And one of the things that I love about conversations like this, they just make the customer experience better. That's why we're here, right? Number of different roles in planning, inventory management, purchasing across a few companies. Right now, managing e-commerce and marketing analytics for Reyes Beverage Group. Reyes is part of a larger company, Reyes Holdings. From a distribution perspective, we supply about 60% of Molson Coors, Miller Lite, all those brands outside of Anheuser-Busch to the US. Our website is right now predominantly B2B, totally B2B actually, which has opened up a new world to me as it relates to order management and meeting customer expectations. So excited to be here. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, Charlie. That was great. And last but not least, Anirudh, please go ahead, sir.
Hello, everyone. Well, very excited to be here. And what a passionate group of people talking about order management and inventory. So I would just echo the same, like Darko and Darpan and team, like congratulations in setting this up. Absolutely beneficial to a lot of people, including myself, learning about fulfillment technologies. Technology is something that me personally also very passionate about. I mean, I enjoy solving business problems with all the technologies. And a little bit about myself. So I'm head of engineering for BJ's at the BJ's Wholesale and Retail Technology. So everything that runs on digital and omni-channel is something that I oversee. We are primarily known for groceries in the business. So definitely we breathe inventory challenges day in, day out, and think continue to think about and learn about like all the innovative solutions that are out there, how we can solve those by bringing the best practices. So I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Absolutely, our pleasure. We are even more excited to have all of you for here. And I cannot wait to start the discussion. So without any further ado, I think that briefly, before we jump into the actual topics, this is surely the agenda. As you can see, we are halfway through. We're gonna quickly discuss the first subtopic for today, which is really around the concept of resilience in inventory planning. But before we jump into that, Abhishek or Karan, can you guys please start the questions so we can really get the pulse of our group? So the first question is, thank you. So you guys should have the question on your screens. The first question is, how well does your organization currently leverage data and technology to influence customer behaviors and optimize inventory utilization? I am curious to learn this myself.
Darko, is that question directed at any specific person?
No, that was a pool question, Charlie. I don't know if you guys saw the pool. You should.
Yeah, it came up.
That pool is just to get the pulse of the audience. And I just want to understand, we can use those pulse questions to guide us through the conversation. But like now, for example, we have the results and we can see that people or our friends and order management gurus on the call, 71% of them are moderately effectively. They selected that option on how well does your organization currently leverage data. And that's that's what I expected, because this is where we are heading with this. You can go on the next slide. Today, with all the technology we have, and I know Vivek and Anirudh can speak more about this, we are surrounded with AI, ML, we have predictive analytics, and we are still in a position to take gamble and make bets when it comes to inventory planning. We, as you can see here, some of the newspapers or some of the headlines, we have overstock, understock, retailers in jeopardy, and it's all because at some level we did not get our inventory right. And this is happening in a time where technology is at its peak. So with that, that's going to be our first topic of conversation, is how do we create resilience? How do we recover from these wrong bets, from these gambles? And as you can see here, it cost the whole industry around $2 trillion, which for reference is like the GDP of Italy. So we can literally save Italy if we get inventory right. And out of those, 1 trillion is issues that are really controllable, system, processes, training. So that's going to be the first subtopic that we're going to discuss today. And I would really ask Liz to open this. And the reason why I want Liz to open this is it's fascinating to me, Liz, that in your world, in fashion and fast fashion, trends are changing so fast. One TikTok can go viral and it can deplete your inventory, or if it's can really stockpile your inventory if some of your other competitors are going through that. So what is your take on this? How do you approach creating this resilience considering the technology we have at hand?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a loaded question. I certainly will express that, because you can go a variety of different ways, and I think we can all agree that we're in a very unique, or we've been in a very unique situation these past couple of years, and especially since COVID really just completely disrupted the entire industry from all aspects, right? I don't think there was any one person that didn't go by scathed, from the impacts of COVID and, certainly the supply chain disruption that we all experienced, as a result. And, some of us are still reeling through that, more so than others. But, I think the resilience that, we've been able to certainly build within Tapestry is really leaning on data, and allowing, data to help us tell the story, becoming more consumer centric, understanding, meeting the customer where, she or he wants to be at every, point in their shopping journey. So I think, becoming more data centric, consumer centric, and leveraging, data to guide the ways we work has been a huge and really big pivotal turning point for us to navigate, these tumultuous waters that we've experienced over the last few years.
Interesting. I was expecting a similar, I would say, outtake on that, because we can all see how data impact the whole world for the last 5 years, even with something like COVID, not just from our perspective, but how it really helped put the world back on its feet. But Charlie, can you also comment on this? Because you coming from a completely, I'll say, different perspective, but also similar, different in a way that your main target is B2B. Also, there are some unique rules when it comes to beverage industry, like perishable goods and different compliance issue with different states, even zip codes. What is your experience with this?
Well, I really can't speak from the RBG perspective. I wasn't with the company at the time. Learning from others who were, right? COVID was actually a really good sales period. The amount of alcohol consumed during COVID when we were on lockdown was pretty amazing. But that said, it wasn't unit per unit ingestion, call it that, remained just about the same. The average order value of a can of liquid went down. So unit for unit, these companies were still moving product. So that kind of like, while sales were good, they were really good, right? Operationally, your margins kind of dropped, right? Because you were selling lower price, lower margin goods, but selling a lot more. So that said, it was really from the data that really was gained from sales went into translating how we change our operations to meet that fulfillment need, right? We operate, and I'll talk more about it based on the questions, I'm sure, but Reyes Beverage Group is a highly operational company that operates on relatively narrow margins compared to most retail groups, right? So our focus was in the operations. So it wasn't necessarily, we weren't thinking, and like I said, I wasn't there, so I'm kind of gathering this, but
Charlie, you were breaking a little bit for me. I'm not sure if that's the same for the...
Same for me as well, Darko.
Okay, I think that we can get back to Charlie. I'm thinking he's some technical issues. And while we fix that, I'm gonna jump to Vivek. Just Vivek, you're the data guy, you're the technology guy together with Anirudh here. What I want to ask you is, how do we predict the things that are not predictable? And I'm giving, this is the example I'm going to give. How do we deal with social media trends? For example, one TikTok put Bud Light, and this is Charlie's industry, completely out of business for a couple of months. Is there any way for us to kind of recover from those bets? We plan something, Bud Light planned for the whole year, 1 minute long event disturb their whole supply chain network. So how can we leverage technology and kind of try to fix that, or to manage that, or to improve it?
Yeah. So I wish there were a short answer to this, or an easy answer. There's not, right? But I actually want to step back. I think there's sort of a presupposition here that technology is the answer to this. I'd question that, actually, right? And so, I kind of focus on two things, right? So one is basically, as you sort of plan, whatever planning you're doing, supply planning, demand planning, whatever it is, right? I think one of the things you have to acknowledge is that you're planning well in advance of demand, and demand is fundamentally unpredictable, right? So, if we had a crystal ball that told us everything, amazing, right? There'd not be much to do. But I think you got to be really careful and then there's lots of snake oil as well, by the way, right? It's like every time there's some new AI or whatever it is, it's like, all right, hey, I want to tell you the future. A lot of that is actually, I would say, kind of bullshit, right? Pardon the turn of phrase. Instead, like, I think the way you need to think about it is when you're planning, there is fundamental uncertainty, right? That you got to deal with. That's the way of the world, right? Like, you wouldn't expect to kind of go to a financial advisor and say, hey, give me a portfolio that's like perfect, right? I never lose money. That doesn't exist, right? The world is fundamentally uncertain. So you have to step back then and say, okay, well, if it's fundamentally uncertain, what do I need to do? And what you need to do is characterize that uncertainty, right? So let me say something really simple, right? So you're sitting here, let's say 6 months in advance of demand realizing, right? And you know that things are going to be uncertain. Given that things are going to be uncertain, you have to actually make a bet. And your bet is basically how much inventory do I buy, right? The best you can do is make that bet intelligently. And as you make that bet intelligently, the one thing you have to evaluate is what is the cost of having too much? What is the cost of having too little, right? These are not symmetric costs. And those costs vary depending on the organization's margin structure, the portfolio of products around that product, right, that can capture shortfalls, and all of these sorts of things, right? And oftentimes, when I actually look at how planning gets done, it gets done devoid of actually thinking through this uncertainty and responding to that uncertainty. And if you're responding to it, at best, it's kind of being done in like a very, shall we say, gut-driven way, right? And yeah, I think you should do things in a gut-driven way, but I think what's really important is you're not going to get like a perfect prediction. Just recognize that, right? And I think heart of hearts, we all recognize that and know that. So if you're not going to get that, what are you going to get? What you should be able to do is characterize uncertainty really well. So you should be able to know 6 months in advance, I'm very confident of this prediction. This is indeed what's going to happen. And on this other one, you know what? This is my guess, and here's the spread. If you have that information and you can get that information in a reliable way, in a non-BS way using data, then you can actually make planning decisions in advance that at least acknowledge this uncertainty and are optimal relative to it, right? So I think that's how I kind of think about this. I don't think there's like a crystal ball or whatever it is. I mean, I live in that space, and it's like a perpetual motion machine, right? Those things don't exist.
I was hoping, Vivek, you're gonna give us the crystal ball. I was expecting you're gonna say, no more bets. We're not anymore. But this is a great intro for Anirudh. I really want to get your perspective on this because you're an engineering leader in the field. So
yeah,
how do we build for users when, according to all of your opinion here that I can pick on, bets are not going away. We're just getting better at getting more informed bets.
Yep. And as Vivek said, that there's no crystal ball. It's all unpredictable, and that's the reality. Like, who predicted COVID, right? Like we it's a sudden surge in the demand, and we need to have the ways to handle that. I mean, it's a combination of, I would say that it's a combination of building the right customer experience with the right set of technologies. I think, and everybody needs to like be really, really razor focused around, like, do you have the right set of customer experience when there's a surge in demand, and you are be able to fulfill that and be able to handle that demand in a particular order. And it all goes with the planning too. Like there are things that you can plan, there are things that you cannot plan. But the technology, that's where the technology comes in, where it tries to plan it or do the things which are unpredictable. Like, let me give you an example. Like, a couple of years back, PS5 used to be like a really, really hot product. And one Twitter, update on it would actually can cause a lot of havoc on the website, and then you get a really surgeon defined. The thing that goes into it by technology side is like, how well do you plan such events? So like, a lot goes into it, like thinking about planning and allocation of the inventory. How much do you make it available to the consumers? It also goes about like when the customers are really landing onto your website or your app, like, do you have the right parking lot? Do you have the right experience for them? Like, hey, there's a wait, like you'll get there. When they are ordering it, are we sending them the right level of communication? Are you letting them know it's in the process of fulfillment? Are you delivering the right message to them? You don't want to disappoint the customer, period. So it goes all with that planning, like what are you about to sell? What are you putting on the website? You know what could happen when the search happens. Think for those, all the scenarios that could go wrong, right? And then plan with those technology options, what can you do to make sure that your customer experience is, is unbeatable and is not damaged. That's how we go about it. Like, and that's just the one example that I gave, but we have like tons of examples like that. Like, just focus around this. If this happens, what do you do and how do you react to it? Because honestly, there is no, there is no crystal ball.
And that's a great comment, and it's a grand entry level to our next segment, really around customer behavior, because we can say we're trying to improve customer behavior, but one thing that is ever changing is customer behavior, and I'm sure all of you here have experienced that in a good or in a bad way. I'm sure both. But before we dive into that, Abhishek, can we get the next pull question, which is around customer behavior?
Absolutely.
Sorry, team, I fell off there. I apologize for that. Back on now. Thank you.
No sweat. Charlie, what's a panel without a tech issue, right?
Oh,
It
exactly.
just makes it real.
It always seems to be me for some reason. I can't quite figure it out.
Okay, so the question is, in your experience, what is the biggest challenge in recovering from wrong inventory placements or decisions? Lack of real-time data, inadequate predictive analytics, limited adaptability in processes, and other. And this other here, in my mind, was customer behavior, but it fit in well into our conversation. So while everybody is answering that, I'm curious to learn the statistics behind it. Where do we go from here? We planned, the bets work or didn't work. Let's say now we have plenty of inventory left out. What is the current industry standard, or how do we approach kind of tuning up the customer behavior so they can leverage, so we can leverage what we have available? So how do we approach the issue of dealing with customer behavior, short-term and long-term? And what are some new exciting technologies, mainly Vivek and Anirudh, maybe you guys can answer this. What are some new exciting technologies that we can use to kind of leverage this in our retail worlds? Who wants to go first? Liz, you can go first.
I'm seeing a trend, Darko, with me going first all the time, but that's okay. This is a tough one. I think I liked his comment in the chat, because I think there's actually a lot of truth to that. I think we've got to control what the controllables are. As I think about how to react to wrong decisions, how to be more proactive versus reactive. And Vivek, if I go back to even what you were saying, we don't have crystal balls, right? All sales forecasting, certainly from an inventory management perspective, it's all false precision, right? It's what we know at that point in time, and certainly your life of goods, and certainly from production to delivery, is going to vary depending on, what sector you are, in the business. For luxury goods, we have a longer, lead time. So the decisions that we make at that time, of our initial buy pre-season can ultimately change by the time that product is produced and it's already arriving, in market. So, again, it goes back to, what do we know? How is the trends or the consumer behavior changed? And then how do we, essentially flex to manage through, the decisions that were made at that point in time to the best of our ability, while, still trying to achieve our sales and margin targets, trying still to deliver, to the consumer appetite and the behavior, for that period of time. Right. And again, yes, data can be, perishable, but data can also tell, a lot. Right. There is some, cyclical behaviors, that happen, throughout, the course of a year and certainly season to season that, and I think Vivek, you even touched on this, right? Like there is a percent that we do know, right? It's, there is a consumer, behavior that's pretty consistent, for your given market. We, there are, tried and true customers that we know are going to, come back time and time again. And we need to just make sure that we don't disappoint that customer, right? We continue to retain, but we also go after, new and acquiring, either, expired, customer, tendencies for, when they shop with us, how they've shopped with us in the past and bringing them back. So I think, it goes back to just really underscoring, what seems to be the theme in this discussion, right, is resilience. How do you build, the resilience, not only in your people, your process, your technology that allows us the flexibility to be able to react and respond to the changing, market trends. And that's happening every single day. I mean, he is telling us, I know in my sector, they're telling us what they want, every single day. They're by coming, either deciding to shop with us or not, shop with us, to convert, and again, I think Anirudh, you talked to this as well, right? Is allowing the customer, speaking to their emotions, and when they come to our sites or they come to our stores, wherever, choice that they've decided to shop with us, that we make it the best experience possible for them. Right, that we give them, what is, their desire and their appetite at that point in time, and then we learn from it and we iterate on it, and we understand whether it's a short or a long-term, trend that we can either go after and really, stand behind, or it's just, it's a blip on the radar and something that we just don't want to, invest in, or perhaps it's just not the customer that we're going after either. So there's a lot there. To really kind of, tease apart and, and continue to, learn and iterate on and, hedge your bets, or, learn from the mistakes that you make, and, how well you do that really depends on the people that you have within your organization.
Thank you, Liz. Those are all great comments, but the question I have here, and probably Vivek, you can jump on this one, is how crucial is speed now? Because with the newer trends in technology, with social media, with everything else, I think the way customer behavior changes, customer expectation constantly increase. As you guys remember, maybe 10 years ago, it was unimaginable to have same-day delivery. Now we have 2 hours free delivery with some retailers. So the expectation has changed dramatically from a technology perspective. How crucial is for retailers to react with a speed?
Let's just take a quick step back, right? So order management, right? So let's say you're building some sort of fulfillment optimization engine, right? You're talking about like, fast delivery or whatever. Fulfillment optimization is an important piece of that, right? If your fulfillment optimization engine is hit by an order that has to be shipped out of DCs that are in 2 different parts of the country, there's very little you can do about that. Right? So what are you going to optimize? Ship something from here, ship something from there. There's only so much you can do, right? And so you can ask yourself, why is this happening? If you kind of think about the conversation, so far we've been thinking about demand as being entirely exogenous. So you're saying we plant as a retailer, we plan our inventory, we plan all sorts of things. We have all kinds of systems set up or whatever, and then demand happens, right? Demand happens, and then we kind of react to that demand, right? So you sort of think about that for a second. I think what you have to do is question for a second, is it the case that demand just happens? Oh, of course, definitely. A part of it is exogenous, right? No questions asked. You had COVID, macro shock, things change, whatever. So sure, they're exogenous things and they do impact demand. But actually, I would argue, and I've kind of looked at this in a pretty careful data-driven way. If you sort of think about looking at explaining the variance of demand, right? Yes, some of it is definitely exogenous, but actually a big piece of it is endogenous. What do I mean by this, right? So let's think of all of the folks here that have kind of, let's say, a commerce presence, an electronic e-commerce presence, right? So you think about the e-commerce journey for your customer, right? That e-commerce journey often shapes their demand, right? As a simple example, if I go onto a website and I search for something, the search results you show me impact what I'm likely to explore and then eventually buy, right? I mean, duh. So now let's just think about these two independent systems, right? On the one side, you've got, front-end commerce, the digital portion. The digital portion, as they think about things, they're maximizing, broadly speaking, for merchandising objectives. Merchandising margin, let's call it, right? And the reality on the back end, what we're talking about over here is like, hey, actually we care about EBIT, right? It's not just merchandising margin. You care about the merchandising margin net of how did I ship it? Did I kind of run through all the inventory I had of one thing and I've got a ton left of the other thing, and so on and so forth, right? And so I actually see a big sort of opportunity, right, in terms of bringing these two worlds together. From what I've seen, these two worlds actually don't operate together very well, right? You've got optimization happening on the digital end, and then really inventory, fulfillment, order management, all these things are responding to this, to a first order, right? Instead, the way one needs to think about this is think about all of our objectives in terms of inventory management and so on and so forth, or the cost of inventory, the cost of fulfillment, and so forth, and take those objectives and make those objectives a crucial portion of what the sort of commerce experience optimizes. I am personally particularly excited about technologies that let you kind of put these two worlds together. And this is in a very incipient phase. This is stuff that's actually happening right now, right? There are new technologies being built to kind of bridge these two worlds, right? So for instance, if somebody searched, the search results don't just kind of care about merchandising margin. They actually, at some level, care about the whole journey. And ultimately, you're making as much money, as much EBIT as possible, given the state of your supply chain and the state of that customer, right? So that's the kind of stuff I think I'm very, very excited about, right? Control what you can control. And if within your enterprise, you've got these two kind of little pieces working independently of each other, well, there's something to be done there.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Vivek. I'm gonna think about that for the next 2 weeks. It was a great comment, but I want to ask Charlie here. Charlie, you're in a slightly different world from Liz when it comes to the customer, so B2B. Would you say everything that we just discussed also apply to the B2B model? And then Anirudh also have B2C and B2B together. So where would you draw that line, Charlie?
Yeah, I would actually say in the B2B space, what Vivek's saying actually happens twice, right? It's happening with the customer that we're serving to, that retailer who's supplying you, right? And then we have to understand the buying behaviors and where those two concepts meet for our retail stores out there who you visit each day. It's actually, it goes a little farther for us in a very interesting way. If I purely associate myself in the data-driven call and decisions that we make based on the end consumer, well, then I'm taking out a third of the information that I need to be looking at, and that's actually who's buying from us. So there's a very distinct difference in who is consuming beer versus who is actually buying beer from us. And putting those two worlds together is extremely important. I would say our industry overall is a little bit behind in that realm, if you will. But that said, it really for us is really a two-step phase, and Vivek's exactly right.
Thanks, Charlie. That was great. And Anirudh, you
Can
are
I just, I'd love to just pick Vivek's, brain a little bit more, because what you said, really resonated with me in terms of, we don't do this well, right? Just the meeting of, the inventory and the optimization, of, certainly order management to get us to this optimal, space. And living in it every single day, and certainly, seeing the challenges that we experience. I mean, we're living that right now. Exactly what you said is exactly what, we're challenged with, is, the way that the system, we designed the system to essentially, work with the decisions that were made, much more upstream, right? We can tune those dials. We can, create, logic to get us to, what we think is somewhat of an optimal, selection. But in the end, those decisions are made separate from each other, right? We're lucky that we have a system and we have logic and, reason that can get implemented, right? To help, that pain be a little bit less, or, sometimes a little bit more, if we've dialed it, incorrectly. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on, how do we need to move to that space, or, what do you recommend, for the different, industry, partners here to try to, get us closer to really marrying those two together?
Yeah, so my thinking actually, so again, I don't have all the answers for sure, right? But I think there's an important first step. So I think an important first step is to start a conversation within your organization. Like what I have seen actually is that oftentimes this conversation is not even happening, right? It's okay for one org to kind of have their objective function, the other org has their own objective function, and you're optimizing your own thing, right? So I think the first step is not a technology step. It's for folks to actually get together and understand how they benefit from each other when they actually start thinking like this, right? So for instance, for all your digital colleagues, right? They might look at this conversation and say, listen, I don't really care, right? Like what I care about is like AOV or something like that, right? That's what I care about, AOV, or I care about, whatever, right? Like I don't care about your inventory thing. Do that right? Get your planning to work, right? So you have to have something to say to them, right? And I think the way to kind of make that case is to say, listen, think about a customer journey where you've paid all this money to acquire the customer, right? And it's very easy to do this analysis, right? Say like, hey, how much money do you pay to get a session, right? Like in terms of like, how much are you paying for a click that lands on your site? It costs money, right? And often lots of money. Like if you're thinking like luxury, if you're thinking luxury, it's often like $3 or $4 per session. It's expensive, right? So I've paid that amount of money for this person to come in. But now, they explore the brand, they find stuff they love. And then, when they're getting ready to check out, they discover that it's going to take forever for this thing to get to them, right? Okay, let's imagine that there was something else you had at that moment in time, right? That they could have potentially have also been interested in. Maybe not as much, but let's say they were interested in it. And you could have gotten that to them in 2 days. And that this made all the difference to their behavior, right? Wouldn't you want to do that, right? And so I think it's really important to kind of have that education happen, to sort of say, let's all get on the same page in terms of what matters to the org and why these objectives are interesting to both of us, right? That is like, it's not like I'm worried about bottom line and you're worried about top line. No, like we care about all of this, right? So I think it is important to find within the org, and if the metric doesn't exist, then this conversation is pointless, right? But we have to find, I think it's incumbent on us and our digital peers, right? To find a metric where we say like, hey, listen, this is actually important to both of us. We're both leaving money on the table as a result of this. I think that's the first order thing. I think the next thing, right? So after you're done with that first piece, the next thing is visibility, right? So oftentimes when I kind of think about the commerce funnel, there's tremendous visibility in terms of like behavioral stuff, right? There's tremendous behavioral visibility. Why? Because, we've been doing recommendation systems for the last 20 years, and we've been doing whatever for whatever, right? Like there's tons of like that visibility available. But what is not necessarily always available and plugged in is visibility at latencies that are respectable of like the things we care about, like inventory positions across the entire supply chain. What is the logistics cost? What is this? What is that? Right? So some organizations, I find a great big spectrum of kind of maturity over here. I think some folks are really good at this. They get that visibility really fast. Others aren't. Why is having fast visibility important? It's because, you know, the timescales on the digital end are all measured in hundreds of milliseconds, right? You want things to be sub 100 milliseconds on most of these things. And so that, to my mind, is kind of like the second point, like the second level of kind of things, like let's have all our ducks in a row, right? And then I think the third thing is kind of technology that brings these things together. That technology doesn't actually exist, to be completely honest with you, right? But there's folks that are actually working. Shameless self-plug, I'm working on that kind of stuff, so I care about it, right? Like, and it came out of like being frustrated, right? It came out of being frustrated. I was like kind of having done this for the last 10 years. I'm just like, hey, wait a second. What is the point of me optimizing against something that's already broken when you could have set something up that would have been beneficial on kind of both ends? So I think like that final step is actually thinking about functionality like search, for instance, like presentation, like all of that stuff that's, you know, germane to e-commerce, and rethinking it for the sorts of things we care about.
That's when innovation happens, Vivek, right? When you are really, really frustrated, and
Yes!
then you know, like this is the problem that we really need to solve.
But Anirudh, how do you approach that? Because from an engineering perspective, usually in product, and I'm living through this too, we usually we
Yep.
get orders. You need to build this. Not a lot of questions.
You know, yeah, I'm like so many different perspective, right? Like there's a lot goes into it, and visibility, what Vivek talked about, like that definitely goes into it. See, one of the thing is like when you were asking about like how does B2C, B2B world can coexist? It can only coexist by like centralizing the inventory. Like, and we truly believe in that. We centralizing the inventory, centralizing the node locations where inventory is located, and actually knowing your customers. Knowing the customers is super duper important. The B2C customer is very, very different from B2B customer. B2B customer, you are working directly with them. You know what their requirements are. You know when you can fulfill them. You know how to fulfill them and how you can optimize your fulfillment. B2C person is totally different. They want to get it. They want instant gratification. They want to get it right then, and they want different options. They want to get it same day delivered. They want to get it delivered in their home, not to their business. They want to get it like they are on the way. They want to buy online and pick up in club. They want different options. B2B customers are totally different. They are looking to optimize their business. That's the only thing that they need. And knowing your customer is important because you can plan things accordingly. For B2C customer, you can fulfill the demand right away. But B2B customers, you can actually build the right tools and processes in place to fulfill their demand at the right time. So that goes into the design principles. When these technology solutions are built, we do them day in and day out, talking about this, like what the journey will be all about. Where do we place the hold on? Where does order need to really wait? When do we really get the payments? And then when we settle it? Because, you know, there is no magic. B2B customers or B2C customers, everybody has a dynamic demand. They don't come with a prediction what is going to be, but how do you handle those and do retroactive is very important. By the way, real-time data is also really, really helping now a lot. Like how much near real-time data that you can get from your DCs or the nodes and the locations, that is now started playing a big role. Because that is when you start promising to your customers in a better way. And of course, you know, from a business perspective, you're thinking about your fill rates, you're thinking about your member satisfaction, like and stuff like that. Like these, you also start thinking about your metrics, like are you hitting those metrics? And then those fill rates and everything can get improved when you have a real-time data. Because that is the thing, because predicting supply demand is at probably at a higher level, but probably to get at daily execution level, you gotta have that near real-time data to be able to make that decision. So I just wanted to add that. Point over there.
Real-time data is the new bottom line. We start from, we build on top of that. So I know we are having a great conversation, but one last question I wanted to ask you is like, all of this is complicated, but can we include seasonality into this? Seasonality in retail, and how does that affect really how do we prepare for it? How can we get better at it? And what are the main challenges? And I want to ask Charlie first, because Charlie, for a long time, was helping. I was leading Spirit Halloween, and that's the best seasonal business I can think of when you plan for 9 months and then you execute for 3 months. So, Charlie, you want to take it over?
Oh man, you're putting me right on the spot. Darko said it right? So the mantra with Spirit Halloween and that business, or the Halloween industry overall, is that a week's a month is, or whatever. A week is a month, a day is a week, and an hour's a day, right? You got 12 weeks to sell. You've been building inventory all year long. One of the biggest issues with us, not issues, but challenges that we had to learn to overcome and leverage our order management system for in probably the most maximized way throughout the season was simply our peak demand came in October 13th, 14th, 15th, somewhere in that range. When you think about your standard B2C retailer, let's call it Black Friday, Cyber Monday, you still have a lot of time to fulfill. The seasonality within the season of not Spirit Halloween, but Halloween business overall, really starts with decor. All your families out there making their front yards look awesome, right? Then it starts with kids' costumes, and then it starts with women's costumes, and then it starts with all us men on the phone. I know I'm right. You guys wait until the afternoon of Halloween day to get your costume together, right? So there's a seasonality within seasonality. And all of that kind of culminates in, like I said, that October 13th through 16th range. Well, Halloween parties are starting the 20th, the 13th, 14th. That's your last day for any kind of economy shipping that might be out there. And so historically, this industry could run with like coming out of that peak time with like a 2 to 3 day lag, right? You would come out with this tail. Well, what we had to discover, because our business got so big, is how do we peel roughly 3%? And not all we're talking about here is 3%, but 3% of our total demand really got us into a position exiting that 3-4 day period where we had a tail of 5 to 6 days. So now all of a sudden, Liz's kid is not going to get his or her kids' costumes. If she ordered economy on October 12th, she should be able to, right? She's not going to get that product now in time. So we kind of went down the road. We went down BOPUS, we went down BOSS. We did all these typical kind of what you would do to solve this problem. And they didn't work, right? They didn't work because the inventory structure in the field, we have 1,500 stores. We only had 2-3 units of each different SKU in those stores. So any kind of run would wipe out 500 BOSS fulfilling stores like that. So what we had to do was get really granular, put our predictive analysis really at bay here, right? And really focus in hard. And we came up with this concept. Well, we basically said, if we're really good at popping up 1,500 retail stores in about 6 days, then we can pop up 20 to 30, call them mini DCs, right? So we popped up these DCs. We leveraged our order management system at the time, which was extremely basic. We didn't need a lot. We kind of said, hey, this is fundamentally simple. Let's keep it simple. Let's do it. Let's launch these. Let's start them on October 5th. Let's run them all the way through the 25th. And all of a sudden, what did we do? We didn't peel off 3%. We peeled it off 7-8%. We could operate these small DCs at a fraction of a cost per unit outbound than we would with our major DCs. So this was really to me, it was like an exercise of, okay, we put a plan out there. We understood exactly what could go right. We knew what we thought we could fulfill. We had a gut feeling. We knew then how to mitigate any deviation from that path. If we oversold, if we undersold, we knew where to get inventory from, and we knew how to peel off what was fundamentally hurting our business, which was that great problem of awesome sales. But it gets back to the saying that we always had: can't build the church for Easter Sunday in a super highly seasonal business like Halloween. We need a huge DC October 13th through the 16th. every other day of the year, we're doing a fraction of those sales, and it's not cost effective to own a building like that or buildings like that. So for us, it became not just making it a better experience for the customer, getting their product fast, it became making it easier for us internally and more cost effective. Darko, is that the answer you're looking for?
It is, and I'm very grateful you shared that, because I wanted to ask Liz next. I have noticed lately in the high fashion world that they're adopting something similar with pop-up stores, something that was unprecedented long time ago, but now you can go and see Prada store that's there just for a week. I think it's great. So Liz, can you share more about that?
Yeah, well, pop-up stores, serve a variety of different, functions. I mean, certainly they can service when you have a plethora of inventory, right? It's a creative way to, certainly liquidate inventory if you pick the right market and certainly the right type of location. But they can also serve, when you're looking to, test and learn different, markets, brand appetite, with different consumers. So they service us in multiple different ways, based on the business strategy, at hand. So it's, we use them creatively depending on, what's happening at the time, either, very intentionally, to really build out our brand image and help with, more product differentiation, certainly between channels, certainly between brands. If we're looking to test new markets, new concepts, with store designs, we use them in that, capacity as well. Or even, understanding, new markets. If we're looking to go into new distribution, we use them for, to service that aspect as well. And I just, Charlie, it's funny you mentioned that story. We have a very similar story that actually worked against us because we didn't have, the proper, process and steps in place to really unlock those types of fulfillment hubs. We kind of call them, they're either in little mini, DCs, or we call them little mini fulfillment hubs that we know there are certain, stores within our market that have a bigger space. And we knew, certainly during that peak period for us, it's a longer period of time. We don't have that short Halloween window. We have obviously the Black Friday through Christmas holiday. So it's a little bit longer, that set 6-week, period. And we were going to, with the explosion of e-com, leverage store fulfillment and look to these little mini FCs, to help fulfill, right? We knew we were going to intentionally, funnel inventory. But we also had to take a stance to say, well, the demand stream didn't warrant the inventory in these locations, right? Maybe the store, footprint was larger, but the actual consumer demand in that particular brick and mortar store was lower, right? So we really needed kind of some of that, magic and logic to come into play to say we have to take, a strategic bet on these stores to send more inventory into them, so then we could make that order routing logic work for us. And we would, see those orders route to those locations because the inventory, was there, right? So it was going to help, service a couple different things: cost, speed, certainly, the increased demand that we were expecting from e-com, and it didn't work. And it didn't work for a variety of reasons, whether it was, right product at the right place at the right time, but also those stores didn't warrant the demand. So the systems worked against us, right? They didn't see the need, right? So we couldn't we couldn't allocate the inventory into these locations to the degree that we needed, to support the strategy that, we wanted to go after for, a peak period of time. So that's when, it's an example of, okay, what not to do, or, I think more, kind of thoughtful, flush out needed to occur to really kind of work through, the approach and how it was going to execute. And, it didn't hurt us, by any means, but it didn't also work to, the degree that we had hoped for that particular period of time.
I think for us, what made it ultimately work is that you're staring down the lens of your forecast, right? You're staring down the lens of knowing that this fulfillment tail is going to exist, right? And you're looking at your prods out of your DCs, and you're building up demand in August. It comes to September. it only takes a couple of days. For us and the type of retail that we occupy or rent for that short period, it only takes us a few days to set something like this up. So we kind of knew, and we learned from this, but we knew we were staring at a future that would have held for us a longer tail than we could operationally manage. So it worked out really well for us because the what if we didn't was such a dramatic impact, right? Makes sense?
Yeah.
Oh, I wish we had 4 more hours. I really do. Maybe we can think about this being a larger podcast because I have so many questions that I want to ask you, both of you, actually, both of you, but we said an hour and we lost 2 of the panelists, which I did not have the chance to thank them, but I will. Liz, Charlie, thank you for coming in today. Do you guys have a couple more minutes for a couple of questions?
Sure.
Sure.
Audience? So I'm going to ask my co-host, Karan, Abhishek, do you have questions that we can share?
We have a whole bunch of comments that have been trickling through the chat throughout the session. But I know, Aruna, I see you smiling. I'm guessing you want to share something. I know you were commenting earlier. Feel free to unmute yourself and share.
Aruna, you troublemaker. Go ahead.
Well, Darko, you hold the wagon for that. So if people don't know, me and Darko, we are colleagues. We work together at Gap. And today conversation really resonated with me because this is the exact same problem that I get to solve at Gapping. I lead the logical inventory and customer fulfillment application. So, show the right inventory at the right time, make the inventory available at the right place for fulfillment decision is what I get to do day in and day out. And all good points. I loved everything. And based on my experience, what I have seen working for us for inventory optimization per se is to build in flexibility and ability to react. Because yes, we want to have like 100% accurate, inventory demand forecast, but we know that it comes with its own challenges. We cannot, I would want it, but I know I don't have it. So the second best thing I can do is to have like a very strong flexibility and visibility to make the right inventory available at the right time, at the right place, whether it's online or it's for fulfillment decision. So my ability to hide inventory, my ability to expose inventory, my ability to push inventory out from certain location, all those features becomes very critical when we are trying to react fast. And I have done that and I love it. So, this panel of expert, I felt like I got so much from this conversation. So thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thank you, Aruna, for sharing. Abhishek, do you have questions? I don't want to keep Liz or Charlie any longer because they're gonna yell at me.
No, I'm good. I'm good for 20 minutes.
Great.
Wonderful. No, I'm going through the chat scripts. I'm just sharing some comments that I think Pankaj shared that existing models went haywire when we got into pandemic suddenly. And again, we came out of the pandemic and now the customer behavior changed. We're hearing about e-com kind of going flat, not going up because it's kind of readjusting to the new normal and creating a lot of inventory overhang. I think the question I hear from that is that while you cannot design systems to overfit the equation for those situations, extreme one-off situations, but what would it take to create more resilience in the systems, right? I think that's one thing that I see from Pankaj. Anoop had shared that the angle to the problem is also to try to optimize end-to-end lead time from product design to manufacturing to getting products to the store so that you don't really plan like a year or 18 months in advance. That's another problem to solve. Again, it's a very loaded area of the domain. And then I know you made a comment about data having a shelf life that with constant change, right, makes demand forecasting interesting. Yeah.
So Liz, I have a quick question for you. And while I was researching this topic, I dive into the customer expectation sector where one of the major callouts from the last 10 years, and especially with Generation Z, is that loyalty, it's really down from a generational perspective. So Gen Zs obviously do not attach themselves like the millennials did, and the baby boomers especially. So from an inventory perspective, it's much easier. We have this many loyal customers. We can predict acquisition of this many. You can kind of use predictive analytics to calculate that. But nowadays, when loyalty is, I'll say, under question, there are other more important more important aspects that the younger generations are looking into retailers, not just how fast it's going to take. They don't look at the brand name. So how do you adapt to that as a brand, as a professional?
I mean, it's, every day is a learning experience, particularly with Gen Z and millennials. They each want different things, things are changing, in their lives, certainly every single day, which then, changes their behaviors. But I think, there's ways to tackle it. And, some of it is in, my kind of land of expertise, and some of it, I'll leave to kind of the marketing experts. But I think there's ways, right? Whether it's loyalty programs, really kind of, dialing into the emotion of the customers, whether that's through their experience, from starting on the landing page and going through the journey, of, shopping on our sites, or different, messaging that we can serve up to them, whether it's in external communications, whether it's in social media, whether it's in, even just their journey on the site, that can kind of speak to that emotion, and feel that they are being heard, right? Because that builds loyalty, right? And that comes with that personalization, experience through, whether it's online or whether it's in, in store, as well as within the fulfillment experience, right? There's the speed, there's also the, sustainability aspect, and, all of those different emotional, elements that we are learning to, to dial in on, and certainly speak to differently, and, and customize, each experience to the degree that we can, right, to make it feel more personal. And, and I think that will, inevitably help build that loyalty, right, and ultimately drive that retention, and long-term, consumer value. So I would say, again, we are learning every single day, because it's a consumer market that we are certainly eager to, to tap into, and, and to really kind of understand and learn more about. And, we haven't quite, figured out the, the magic ball, or the crystal ball on that one, but certainly still, learning the different tactics that we can, go after to help.
Thanks, Liz. And I recently saw a comment about a possible crystal ball when it comes to younger generation, and it's called sustainability. I know it's a completely different topic. We can talk about it, but the way it fits with inventory planning and order management system, and how we can adapt our system to show the younger generation that we do care about the environment.
Yeah.
That's
Well, and I think, we've seen that, right? We've seen kind of the industry move in that, in that direction, right? Amazon does it, where they, allow you to choose, right, your speed of delivery. Do you want it faster? Do you want it in more cartons? Do you want it in less cartons? We're, as a luxury, sector, we're not quite there yet. We're not that, sophisticated, but we're learning, and we're trying to understand where can we become, more sustainable, whether it's reducing the, the actual contents, of the carton, right? Reducing some of those, extra materials, that will speak to that customer, while also, speaking to, controlled costs as well. So, there's a lot of different, things that we are, certainly exploring. We're trial and erroring, so there is a lot of test and learn, but the good news is there's so much opportunity out there for us to go after, not only in our industry, but just the greater industry as a whole as well.
great. Thank you for sharing.
See, Vikas has, go on, Vikas.
Hey guys, great conversation, and Liz, good to be hearing from you. You and I briefly talked about this similar problem a few weeks back. I would love to continue that discussion, but I've actually got two questions, and one for Aruna is, if Aruna is still there, and maybe Darko, I can put you on the spot since you work with Aruna, talk about Gap. Question one is, you talked about how you're kind of adapting to the situation that's with you in terms of managing inventory. But I thought Vivek made an excellent point, which is the step one is really bringing the organization together, because everybody has such different incentives and KPIs. And how do you decide on what to do? Forget about the technology side of it. So would love to hear from you on how Gap is kind of helping you make those decisions, because there's so many parties involved in actually making these decisions. And then second question is really to the panel, which is, I know this is a focus on inventory, but I think similar problem is with labor, which is, where do I place my labor? How much should I place my labor? Where? Because demand is so volatile. It's continuously changing shape in terms of how it looks like. Is it going to be picked up? Is it going to be delivered? Where is it going to come from? And labor costs are an extreme problem. So have you applied something similar in terms of how you position or reposition or OT or not OT? Are you applying strategies in terms of how you manage labor on a day-to-day or a week-to-week basis? So if you have the time, those would be the two questions I would love to get some perspective on.
Darko, you want to go or I can pick it up?
Okay, I'll start. The way we approach this at Gap, it's really, we look at the order management system more, we look at it as an order life cycle.
Mhm.
So order management and order sourcing are two different systems. We work together, me and Aruna work together, but Aruna is in charge of the sourcing logic. I'm in charge of making the customer happy. So we have already come on that board. So every time Aruna does not deliver, I'm here with self-service. Every time Aruna is not here, I'm here with an exchange. You did not get this on time, I'll send you an exchange. You did not like this one, you can pick any other product without spending any additional market. So I would say for the past 3 years at Gap, what Vivek said, the company needs to get together. I think Gap is almost there, not completely, but we understood that there are multiple aspects that we need to look on how to make a customer happy and make them returning customer, and per Liz's point, increase loyalty. So that's how we tackle it. We tackle it from different angles. Aruna is really in charge of everything get there on time, but in case something doesn't get on time, I'm here to pick up the
If I can follow up, like as you're thinking about next week or next 2 weeks, there are store operations, there's e-commerce teams, there's finance, right? Everybody's talking about, no, reduce shipping costs. No, let's move inventory. No, let's do 4-day delivery, or Christmas is coming. This is the cutoff. Is there like a SNOP equivalent where everybody is coming together every week, every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and saying, here is everything I want, and now somehow somebody get me everybody outcome.
every day? We have an every day for the month before peak. We get together every day. We have we get officially and unofficially. We have unofficial chats where we really support each other in this. So I would say the 6 weeks around peak are really hands on board. This is where we don't deploy any new features like almost everybody else in the industry, but we're really around execution. Aruna, did I?
Yeah, 100%. And again, like, my world and Darko world collide, but like we don't, I mean, we are like brother and sister of Gap. So like we need to work together, but like we solve different problems. So Vivek, to answer your question about how, when you're thinking about inventory optimization after the inventory is already placed, so you already have inventory available in store, DC. Now there are two things we are trying to solve. One is that I want to have like optimal view of inventory on my website to sell to customer. So that's where the ATP logic comes in. Now ATP logic in summary would be very, very simple, like supply minus demand minus whatever you want to reserve. At Gap, we do it a little differently. We have a lot of different levers that we can pull to hide or expose inventory. So all those different levers that we have, when we are talking about inventory optimization, decisions regarding those levels on who will be allowed to play with those and how much change we are going to allow to happen, because every decision will have an impact on the customer experience. So obviously you don't want to hide everything, you don't want to expose everything, right? The e-com head, inventory management people, they are the one who are making decision on that. So that's one problem that we are trying to solve on how much inventory is available on the website. The other question that you were talking about, and again, and you know, and all while we are having those conversations, as Faria, I forget his first name, he suggested having a common metric. So like you already want to define that metrics on how are you going to make decision on what you don't want to go south. And for us, that is a cost to ship. I will hide or I will expose everything, but I definitely don't want to increase my cost to ship. Now that itself, the labor component that you were talking about, it's one part of that cost to ship. So when we are making any kind of decision, when we're trying to have like not have a decrement or increased cost to ship, we will look into the split packages. So every feature, every decision is going to have a split package impact. Because again, you can sell everything, but again, it's going to come with a cost on maybe you will increase the split packages. Are you ready for it? The second component would be the labor cost that you're talking about. The way we measure labor cost is by the rejection rate. Because every time a store associate is not able to ship an order, where they try to attempt to ship that order, is gonna increase the split package for sure. You know that that's gonna get shipped from another location, and most probably it will result in a split package. You are wasting time, the labor that could have helped a customer in selling something. So you want to look into like how much orders. So for me, like I care about how many orders got rejected, how many orders the store associate tried to ship but could not ship. The how do you decide like how much labor needs to be available in the store? That has its own company planning, finance people coming together and like deciding on what do I see happening this week and how much labor do I need in the store. Now if a new feature is going in, obviously you will try to incorporate that and say, okay, we expect that more units are going to get shipped from store, so maybe you need to like have some kind of backup or whatever other decision needs to be made. So everybody comes in together, plays together. We definitely try to establish on what the metrics that we're trying to track and what is going to be the negative effect, if any. Try to let them know in advance that this is what you're going to see, so that they are not surprised or blindsided if they suddenly start seeing like more orders getting shipped from store.
Got it. Well, thank you. I appreciate that feedback. I don't know if anybody else has to add, but just kind of follow up. So would you say your fulfillment strategies are continuously evolving? And if so, how often? Is it like a daily decision? You might be changing your rules daily?
No,
Or...
I wish. So there are some levels that you would play more often with, right? So like my offsets, my my capacity at store and how much store can ship out. So there are some levels that we touch more, and there are some levels that you will not touch unless it's peak. So as Darko was saying that for peak, again, like there are some capacity which can have a bigger impact. So you don't want to touch them because the cost of things going wrong is higher.
Arun is not allowed to touch any levers during around peak.
We try to like keep things status quo during peak. We don't like to touch anything during peak. And we have working committees meeting that happens before peak. We have monthly alignment meeting with brand where we try to tell them that, hey guys, what changes are allowed, what are not allowed. As Darko was saying that we already do our peak testing, right? So we already know how much demand we're going to expect. But like when you are in peak, you want to control the variables. So you don't want to touch a lot of levels, and we try to have that alignment before we go into peak.
Aruna, I want to ask something, Liz and Charlie, around cost to ship versus cost to serve, because we can make an argument that cost to ship is very important, but I would argue that cost to serve is much more important term. But I understand that at each organization we look at that differently. So Charlie.
Charlie, I'll let you go first, Charlie.
Well, I think you have to say cost to ship and cost to serve followed by win, right? Yeah. There's a win there. And that win, WHEN, right? That win is when it's right for our customer, when it's right at peak, when it's right in off times, so on and so forth. So, we get to a point where the cost to ship and the missed opportunity of a lifetime value of a customer, sometimes it hits, and the lifetime value is going to always outweigh your cost to ship at that given moment. But sometimes, as long as you deliver, right? And you keep delivering. But sometimes on the margin, when you're sitting there staring at the levers that you could pull and you sit here and say, this is going to cost me $5 more than I'm comfortable shipping, I'm going to blanket cut this off. I've done it before. We're all tempted to do it. We really have to think long term when that question comes up and say, my marginal opportunity right now versus the lifetime of that customer. The lifetime is going to always win. So I know those intersect, and I know we're all thinking that way. I will go into a boardroom explaining why my cost of ship was over plan, as long as I can always say I have acquired and I've gotten these customers to come back again and again. If I can't, you got a problem there. Your problem's somewhere else then.
Yeah.
Can I challenge that?
I think just quickly, I think, Charlie, you touched on something probably without even, realizing that you touched on is I think you have to have your target to begin with. Right. And I think that's also some hard, discussions, and certainly a lot of planning that has to come into play as well, because you got to land on a target, right, to be able to make those, trade-off calls, because there's always going to be a trade-off, right? Is it cost or service? Is it speed? During different, periods of the year will matter, more, and certainly will impact the customer, in different ways, whether it's a self-purchase or whether it's, a gifting purchase. So, I think, we didn't even touch upon, the evaluation. How are we measuring ourselves? What's measurements of success? What are the KPIs, that we're able to, monitor and certainly track against? Are there targets that, that we're setting, within this sector, of work, whether it's fulfillment, whether it's order routing, optimal node versus suboptimal node. So we didn't even touch upon that. And, and that's a critical aspect, of certainly the success of the work that we do. It's not just about inventory optimization. It's how are we measuring, what is optimal? What are those targets and measurements that, we're holding ourselves accountable to, or, the broader business. So I know we're at time. I got to jump, unfortunately, so I apologize, but great discussion.
Bye, Liz. I'm gonna get in trouble if I don't stop this now. I just want to thank you for coming. Like, really thank you. We really appreciate you being here.
Oh, thank you.
Looking forward to the next one.
Likewise. And nice to meet everyone.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thanks, Liz. Thanks, Charlie.
Nice to meet you. Thank you all.
Really appreciate it. Yeah.
Take care,
Take
everyone.
care.